What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm Solo today, and I'm going to be breaking down for you a tier list of my predictions for NFL quarterbacks next year. I want to make this very clear. This is not about how they are competing as of now. This is not how they've been in their career. This is how much I think they will succeed next year. And as I pull this up right here, I made my little tier list. This was made by me if you want to use it. It's under the username. It's Colin Martin something. You'll see it. But yeah, so I have every predicted starting NFL quarterback here. And you see we have a couple different tiers. We have the top five. We have the probably elite. We have the maybe elite, but probably very good. We have an asterisk, which I'll bring up when we get there. We have the mid slash serviceable slash young guys who are getting better. And, you know, they're kind of in that same tier as maybe some guys that are more mid. Then we have the not very good quarterbacks. And then we have some guys that might be too early to tell or maybe shouldn't be starters yet or ever in some cases. So I'm going to bounce around the board here. I'm going to give you some in-depth takes on most of these guys. I'll try to be realistic, but we're going to start off at the bottom. Lowest guy on my list is Kyle Trask. I know this could be Baker Mayfield, but I've heard a lot about Tampa Bay having trust in Trask. Sat behind Brady for a couple of years, but if I can be honest with you, I really don't think he has it. This might serve as a bad take. I know he was really productive in Florida when he was at college, and, you know, obviously you sit behind a guy like Tom Brady for a long period of time, and you're bound to pick up some traits from him. But just as a quarterback, I think he's probably the least talented quarterback playing in the NFL right now. So I kind of had to put him at the bottom. Another guy who maybe didn't have the same resources to get better, and looking for him right here, we got him, Desmond Ridder. I mean, I didn't love him at Cincinnati. I didn't see him as much of a draft prospect. He was one of those guys that was really good in college, but I don't necessarily see the transition to the NFL working out. And I still don't, even after a year of, he didn't start every game, but, you know, we got some reps last year. It's going to be a second year post rookie season. And I don't know. I don't think he would be a starter on pretty much any other team than the one he's on. And I think he has some intangibles that could be good. And getting a guy like Bijan Robinson in-house when you already have, you know, 1,000-yard rushers on your team up until this point, it's going to be good. He's building a squad around him. I think Kyle Pitts is a huge help, but I really don't think he's the option. I think if the Falcons have another bad season this year and they have a chance to get a guy like Drake May, I think they would take him. Up next is a guy that's a little different than these people because I mostly have positive things to say, but I'm going to put Anthony Richardson here. He slides here. I don't know if he's going to start it right away. I mean, going into the draft, there was definitely this perception that he would sit behind a vet for a year, but he got drafted into Indianapolis where he doesn't have the opportunity to do that, unfortunately. They just cut Nick Foles today, the 5th as I'm recording this. And Gardner Minshew, who knows? He obviously has his moments. I do like Minshew, but he's not the long-term option at quarterback, so that's why they take Anthony Richardson. He would definitely be in the too early to tell part of this tier. We never really know. And I'm a big fan of his. He was my quarterback 1 in this draft class, if you didn't know, but I don't know how much I trust him if he has to be a first year guy in Indianapolis. You know, you have Jonathan Taylor to work with, which is in your favor, a pretty solid offensive line, but, you know, you got Michael Pittman as your top weapon. And besides that, I'm not loving what else they got going on. So I think it's going to take some time for Anthony. I think he has much more potential than a guy like Ridder or Trask, but I don't know if we're going to see it this year. Right above him, I have Sam Howell. Sam Howell was a little bit higher because I kind of trust him in that Washington offense a little more. I don't think he's as talented as Anthony Richardson, but he had a full year to sit, and he's had the whole offseason knowing he's the QB1. And I think Washington made a good decision for their team this year by not taking a quarterback. You know, you're prepping Sam Howell to be the guy who was supposed to be a top pick in his draft class before having a poor senior year at UNC. But, you know, it's his time to shine now. And I think he could figure it out. He's still in the too early to tell tier for me. He's not the perfect prospect or anything, but I have a little more faith in him than some of these guys lower down the board. And to make this clear, I am trying to rank within order. So you can flame me in the comments. If you don't like what your favorite quarterback is in this draft, please let me know in the comments. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And if you think I should do this again with maybe some different tiers or different positions, also let me know. To get back on track, we're on to the next. And this guy definitely doesn't fit into the potential that I've talked about with some of these other guys. If you don't know who I'm talking about Ryan Tannehill. Personally, I just don't think he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore, which is wild because just 2 years ago, this guy was in that top 15 range, but the age has caught up with him, and he's kind of fallen off a cliff. We saw it last year. He wasn't willing to mentor Malik Willis. coming in. He kind of beefed with him a little bit in the early season. Then he gets injured. Malik Willis comes in. Malik Willis was horrible, but I still think Willis has some potential. Not to mention the Titans just got Levis as well. So Tannehill went from being, the starter under all circumstances to, fighting for could possibly be put in a third spot. I don't think that's going to happen this year. He will at least start the year as the starting quarterback, but you can tell Willis and Levis are just breathing down his neck right now. And I think this is just proof that Tannehill's on the way out. So I don't claim that I'm smarter than any of these NFL GMs or coaches. If they know that Tannehill's on the way out, I feel like I got to put him in the lowest tier. That being said, I'm putting Mac Jones next. If you guys don't know, I'm a big Patriots fan. Mac Jones is not the answer. It depends who you talk to, if he's in the too early side or the shouldn't be a starter side of this tier list, but I just don't think he should be a starter. I don't expect the Patriots to have a great year next year. They have some guys, but there's some big holes they have to fill. And if you ask me, quarterback is one of them. I think with a bad season, the Patriots might move around in the draft, try to get his replacement. They don't have anyone else on the roster to compete with him right now. I know Bailey Zappi had some magic last year, and there's always fun stuff to talk about with Trace McSorley. But Mac Jones is basically the starting quarterback just by necessity right now for the Patriots. And he would have to have a really good year to move out of this bottom tier right here. He is not in a good position. Next up, I have a guy that might be a little lower than usual. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, or a Super Bowl making quarterback, I should say, because he's not doing most of the work out in San Francisco. Obviously, he's in Vegas right now. He's the short-term Derek Carr replacement. The Raiders didn't promise him a lot. They have a contract they can easily get out of with him. And I think they plan on doing that once they can assess a different quarterback. I don't think he's going to be horrible. I think none of these guys I think are going to be, worse than we've ever seen before, complete garbage. But Garoppolo, he keeps moving around systems. The Raiders, they do like to run the ball, which is in his favor. But I think it's easy to say that they would benefit from a better quarterback. They just don't have it this year. And Garoppolo is going to be that guy. He's going to be a placeholder. And maybe we'll see some of that magic we saw when he first got to San Francisco, or, those couple games he played in New England. But he's kind of old now. I don't know if we can keep banking on seeing some sort of magic. Speaking of a guy that's not very old, I'm not sure if you know where I'm going. I got the last guy in this tier, CJ Stroud. I really like CJ Stroud. I would even argue that he might be the most NFL ready out of all the quarterbacks we saw drafted this year, but he got put in the worst situation. I think Houston, they won't be the worst team by any means, but I think it's fair to say they might have the worst offense right. CJ Stroud this year, if I can, and that's not a position you ever want to be in, rookie quarterback. So I think he is talent-wise good enough to be in a way higher tier, but based on the position he's in, I can't argue any higher. I mean, he finishes the year much better than a guy like Garoppolo. So that's just me. So whatever you want to say about it, I understand. He could be a lot better this year. I think he will be better in the future, but I just don't see it this year. A guy that we've been waiting on for a long time. So this confused. Not very good winning. I don't think Jordan Love is going to be bad by any means, but I don't think he's going to reach the heights that some people may have set for him. Obviously, he has a big role replacing Aaron Rodgers, but he doesn't have those same pieces that Rodgers had in Green Bay. I mean, he's missing Lazard, he's missing Cobb. Aaron Jones is a maybe. I don't want to talk about running back, but Green AJ Dillon defense built up, but that's not helping Jordan Love on the offensive side of the ball. So I think we'll be okay, but I would say we're looking more like disappointing right now. That brings me to Trey Lance. Trey Lance, kind of in the same boat. He's been sitting back. He got hurt, obviously, but we haven't seen him play. The way I evaluate Trey Lance, it's almost like we're watching a rookie. I mean, we really haven't seen this guy play more than like 2 games. The thing with him that puts him slightly over Love is options on offense. Worst comes to worst, he can dump it off to Christian McCaffrey every play, and that'll work out. But if we're talking about his individual performance, I don't think we're going to get one as good as we might be hoping for this year. That brings me to another controversial pick. I'm going to roll Derek Carr here. Derek Carr had some great seasons in Vegas / Oakland Raiders. I don't like him in New Orleans. I really don't. I don't think he is the right quarterback for the situation. If I were the Saints and I saw the roster I had built up right now, I would have been rebuild maybe. Derek Carr doesn't do that for you. Derek Carr Saints with, now he's the new guy, and I don't know if that puts anything in his favor. Maybe the change of scenery will help, but I don't know. And then probably the most controversial take so far, Kirk Cousins. And I'm telling you, there's been seasons these last couple of years where Kirk Cousins was top 10. I think the year he falls. I mean, we can tell that the Vikings power to make stay all right, stay afloat. But Thielen's gone. I know Justin Jefferson's by far the best receiver on that team. I would say Thielen was his favorite target. You bring in Jordan Addison, but, is the rookie really going to change that much for Kirk Cousins? So I think he's going down. I think the Vikings are in a weird predicament because their team is competitive, very competitive, I would say. But I think Kirk Cousins is holding them back. I know that's a very basic take to some, but I've, actually really thinking about it and watching some of the games. I think you got to improve from Kirk Cousins at some point, and I think this is the year where it finally happens. So we got some weird guys still on my board. So we're in the mid/serviceable/young guys getting better. Let's talk about a young guy I think is going to get better. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett. Najee Harris, very disappointing last year. Kenny Pickett in a rookie campaign was good. He picked it up a lot later, more in the year, which is what I wanted to see. Kenny Pickett coming from Pitt, playing for the Steelers. There was a lot of hype there. There was a lot of buzz, but just as a prospect, we knew it was going to take time. I think the time is now. I think Kenny Pickett will go out there. He gets Broderick Jones to keep him upright. I think the Steelers team is going to be interesting. As a team, who knows how far they're going to go. Mike Tomlin teams don't like to lose more than 8 games, so they might be solid. But I think this is where Kenny Pickett really proves himself. With that being said, number 1 overall pick still on the board. I can't put him much higher. He is completely unproven, obviously. He's very small, and what do we say about these small guys that play quarterback? They get hurt easy. You see it all the time. With him, I think his rookie year might shine because he doesn't have as many opportunities to get hurt. If he's on the field, he is special. He's a playmaker. I kind of like what they got cooking in Carolina. I think they're doing their best to give him some weapons while still not being ultra competitive. I think on the offensive side of the ball, Bryce Young is going to be a superstar. I think he's going to figure it out. I mean, if we're talking early takes for rookie of the year, this might be that guy. I don't want to speak too soon, but everyone knows he can play football. I think he's going to go out there, at least be in that serviceable tier. I don't think by any means he'll be a bad quarterback, but that's what we're going to have to wait to see on. This is where the board really gets interesting if you haven't noticed. These guys, everyone left on the board has proven something at some point except for one, but I'm not going to go with that guy. I'm going to go for a guy that's actually proved quite a lot with Matt Stafford. Problem with him, he's coming off pretty much a season-long injury. He's old, and this Rams team is getting worse and worse. He's fortunate that Cooper Kupp is still there. That is in his favor. But besides that, I mean, what are we looking at for this Rams team? Cam Akers was supposed to be a staple, and we saw last year he's become a hit or miss back, which we see a lot of backs become. I like Darrell Henderson, but besides that, Stafford is missing a lot of pieces that he had when he brought the Rams to a Super Bowl. It's not that same Rams team anymore. I think Stafford will struggle. I think he's definitely on the higher side of mid here. Mid doesn't mean bad to me. Mid means middle of the pack, and I think that's about where he's going to end up. Another guy who you might be surprised to see here is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is interesting because that Cowboys team is solid. Tony Pollard, obviously they have receiving threats. They're boosting the offensive line, but I think this is Dak's last year. I've said this on the main podcast before. I think the Cowboys are going to have to figure out what they're doing at quarterback because Dak Prescott's going to be requesting top 5 QB money. Does Dak Prescott deserve top 5 QB money? Jerry Jones, I know he likes to get his stars, but he also doesn't like to sign guys to those second contracts. And I don't know if you can do it with Dak. It's interesting because I like Dak more than this tier might say. But if Dak has a year where his mid are serviceable, he's out of Dallas. I think that puts a lot of pressure on him, and I don't know how he's going to respond. Next guy that's still hanging around on the board, Geno Smith. Geno Smith was interesting. He shocked the world last year. Some people wanted Drew Lock to start over him, which that's ridiculous to me. But Geno Smith showed out, and he was great in Seattle. And you got more weapons this year. You get receiver in the draft, you get JSN. Kenneth Walker's only getting better, you hope. But I don't think Geno can match what he did last year. And I really like Geno as a quarterback. I'm a fan of his, but last year was probably his best year of his whole career, at age 30 plus. I don't think he sustains it another year. It's also time Seattle might be looking to move on from him. I know they gave him a big contract, but they could basically be out after the year after this one. So I think another year, mid-year for him, puts Seattle in an interesting position where you might have to be looking at quarterback sooner than you think. Then there's a couple big names hanging around on this board. Who do I go to next? Remember, this is a prediction for next year. This is not how good they are right now. And I put Kyler in this tier as well. Kyler's interesting. We know we talked about Bryce Young with small quarterbacks earlier. Kyler Murray's probably the smallest quarterback in the league right now. And he's had his ups and downs. He has looked like top 5 material at many points, and he has looked absolutely horrible in others. This Cardinals team is really bad. We don't know what's going to happen with Hopkins. Nuke might be on the way out, but there's nothing else outside of him anyways. I think Brown is a good receiver. You got some guys, I'm kind of running out of names here. I want to shout out Kyler the best I can. I think he's overhated, but he might just be more serviceable next year, which is an issue for Arizona, especially because you look and they might end up with two top 5 draft picks with the Houston trade, with 2 ginormous quarterback names buzzing around right now. Kyler Murray might be on the way out, and that's crazy. But we saw what happened with Zach Wilson. Kyler Murray, much better than Zach Wilson ever was. But some of these younger guys don't get chances anymore. It's very interesting. We saw Kyler Murray replace a guy with Josh Rosen, also horrible, but he didn't even get a chance. You see this asterisk on the screen. I'm going to title it live. This is the Justin Fields tier. So as this has progressed, I'm sure you're looking at me like, how is Justin Fields staying on the board? How is Justin Fields over Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Kyler, Stafford, all these quarterbacks that we know are good? This is where the predictions come in. I think this is his year. This is the year Justin Fields goes out and proves something. I understand this Bears team is shaky, but they made some moves. I like getting Darnell right. You got to keep Justin Fields, a mobile quarterback, safe when he's in the pocket. When you have these mobile quarterbacks, the best thing to do is inspire them to be in the pocket. Then let them get creative after. Justin Fields has a good arm. I don't know where this came from that he doesn't. He didn't have a second to throw the football last year. That Bears offensive line was horrendous. This year, Justin Fields is going to show out, and this is why I'm predicting him so high. That's why I put the asterisk and got all this drama out the way. Justin Fields is mobile, obviously athletic, but he can be accurate. He's accurate on the move in the pocket. We saw at Ohio State, he can do stuff in the pocket. You just got to give him the pocket. I think that's what the Bears are finally doing this year. I don't think the Bears are going to be very good by any means, but Justin Fields is going to step up. He is not a bottom pack. He's not bottom of the pack for quarterbacks. He is not someone that's comparable to Mac Jones. He's not Jordan Love. He is better than those guys. And that's why I put him over some of these guys that you may think are stars. Or if you don't like where your favorite quarterback is put, let me know in the comments, because I'm sure I'm making somebody mad right now. After that, we get a little safer. I got some guys that in the maybe elite, but probably just pretty good, very good tier. And the first guy I'm going to put there is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was incredibly disappointing last year. Nathaniel Hackett is not a head coach in the NFL. He should never have been. He just kind of got carried by Aaron Rodgers and then got put in a position that was too good for him. But now they got Sean Payton. They gave up a lot to get him. It was controversial to get him. But, we saw what Sean Payton could do with Drew Brees. And Russell Wilson, he's not the same player as Drew Brees, but if we're talking all time, it's a pretty close comparison. I think Payton is going to scheme Wilson in ways that we haven't seen since the prime Pete Carroll days. I think this Broncos team is dangerous. Let's not forget, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, they got receivers. This is not a team that doesn't have the weapons for Russell Wilson. I don't know if this Broncos team is playoff bound or anything, but Russell Wilson has a lot to prove. He has to go out there and show that he's not washed up, that he just had one bad year, and I think he's going to do it. I trust Russell Wilson more than most people do. I think he's going to impress. Next up, last kind of controversial guy I might have on the board is Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, we saw that scary injury last year. This is assuming he's healthy. He might not play football this year, and that's what makes it very hard. But when Tua plays, he is really good. There's this perception that he gets carried and, he can't throw the deep ball, but in the Mike McDaniel system, he almost doesn't need to. I understand he's not the perfect quarterback. He definitely has had his downs, and if he's on the field, laying, concussed, he can't affect your team in positive ways. But when he's healthy, he is a stud. I truly believe that. So I'm going to put him higher than most people might. But if Tua's on the field this year with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle, with that Dolphins offensive line that they're trying to improve, it's not perfect. I really think he is up here. He's deserving of being in like that top 15 range for me. Next up, I have Jared Goff. Jared Goff is very interesting. He was very good in Detroit last year. A lot of people wanted Detroit to go and grab Anthony Richardson for the future. They never made that move. it was probably too much when it comes down to it. But Jared Goff has been solid. I mean, that's a Lions team that I think will make the playoffs this year. He has a multitude of weapons around him. They just drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think will be a top tier receiving back right off the rip. But Jared Goff's talent won't allow him to break that barrier. You know, if I'm calling a team a playoff team, there's usually a perception that, hey, you know, maybe they could win a Super Bowl. I think the Lions are a very low ceiling playoff team, and that has to do with Jared Goff. You know, he's accurate and he usually comes up in the big moments, but you never really know what you're going to get from him. You know, he could be as high as top 5 this year, but he could be as low as, you know, getting kicked out after the year's over. So that's a tough one to place. And another guy that's been very controversial is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is interesting. I personally am a fan of his. I wasn't when he first got in the league, but the Giants had faith in him. They signed him to this big extension, and I think it's deserved. I mean, the Giants didn't have a whole lot of other options, but Daniel Jones has improved his game immensely since we saw him last year or even the year before. But that being said, he has weapons as well. I keep mentioning these guys' weapons, but I mean, to be a successful quarterback, that's what it comes down to. What are you surrounded by? Daniel Jones' biggest weapon is Brian Daboll. We saw with Daboll that Jones was able to, you know, play more freely, make more plays, and be that, you know, interesting and accurate and smart quarterback we saw at Duke. Daniel Jones wouldn't turn the ball over last year. We rarely saw it. And I think that's his biggest strength. I mean, I think we could see another step back. Maybe it was a fluke year last year. Maybe he's more like Geno Smith, but I see a lot more potential in a guy like Jones than Geno Smith. And I think that should be reflected here. I think Daniel Jones will end next year as, you know, about a top 10 quarterback. I really do think that. And Banding, if you're watching, I know you'll love to hear that. So shout out to my Giants fans, you know, go Pats though. Next up, you just saw me move him, Deshaun Watson. Outside of his character, outside of all that, you know, we don't really rock with Deshaun Watson over here. But as a player, I think he's going to have a good season. You know, we haven't really got to see him develop in Cleveland. Obviously, he had the suspension and then had a limited playbook last year. But you got to remember how dominant he was in Houston. And I think we're going to see similar things in Cleveland. Do I trust Cleveland to maybe scheme the best for him? Historically, no. But I think this year they're going to figure it out. A backfield that includes Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb has a ton of firepower, a ton of room to get loose. So as much as I dislike him, I'm excited to see him get some playing time this year. I want to see him with a full off season. And, you know, talent-wise, this is a guy that should be in the top 5. But we haven't seen anything from him with the Browns, so we're going to have to see how this transpires. That is my last person that may be elite, probably very good tier. These next guys, everyone left on the board here you see at the bottom, these guys will probably be elite or better. And you'll see my order right now. This new guy, definitely not a new guy. This guy's been around for a while, but he's got a new team with Aaron Rodgers. Going to be my last guy in the probably elite tier. We know he is talented enough to be elite. This is an MVP candidate, it feels like, every year for the last 5 years. I have to say probably, because this is a guy that spent his whole career, his whole long career with Green Bay. I want to say 15-year career. And now he's in a brand new system. I mean, the Jets have done everything to make him feel like home. He got his guys Lazard and Cobb, for example, but, you know, he's not in Green Bay. He doesn't have the same coaching. As weird as this sounds, he doesn't play in the same stadium, doesn't have the same locker room. You know, things are going to be changing for Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to be in New York. We all know with New York athletes, there's a ton of pressure to succeed right away. And if Rodgers starts off slow, these Jets fans might turn on him, and that is clearly not what he would want. So I think he's going to figure it out. It might be a slow start, you know, especially with Rodgers, the deal only taking place later in the offseason. He hasn't got the full offseason with the team. It might be a tough adjustment, but Rodgers is talented enough to make it work. So I'm pretty confident. I'm going to say he's probably going to be elite. You know, I don't think that's unfair to say at all. My next guy, we're looking at the board of quarterbacks, and you might be confused where I'm going to go. I'm going to take Josh Allen. I'm in upstate New York right now. This is where I reside for the time being. So these Bills fans around here probably go for my neck if they heard this. Hopefully nobody's hearing me right now, but Josh Allen, it's time to talk about him a little bit. As you guys may not know, on the old podcast, in Josh Allen's rookie year and on, I've been the biggest supporter. I knew he would be this guy, even at Wyoming, and people came at me, but now people respect me. So as someone who I might proclaim as the Josh Allen expert, being myself, I'm going to tell you, it's time for him to figure it out, man. You know, If you lead these teams with these amazing weapons, amazing coaching, you got a great O-line, great defense, and you're getting knocked out in the playoffs early every single year, eventually it comes down to the quarterback. That being said, we know how good Josh Allen is. He's got probably the best arm in the league outside of the guy I'm going to put number one, who you'll probably be able to guess. And he's athletic. He can move. He's elusive for his size, absolutely. And he just seems to always make the right play until we get to the playoffs. He looks like a shell of himself. I mean, Josh Allen, he's been loyal to the Bills, unloyal to his girlfriend. And I just think this might be the year where he's not consensus top 5 anymore. I'm not picking him to be my MVP by any means. I think the Bills have a lot to figure out. They got him Kincaid, which is going to help him out a little bit. But I'm looking at these other guys on my board. I think every one of these guys is going to be better than Josh next year. So I have to place him accordingly. Talk about a guy who's loyal, even though we might not have expected it. Lamar Jackson figures it out in Baltimore. He's staying for the long haul, and he's probably going to be elite. I'm a very big fan of Lamar Jackson, but just projecting for next season, he's not durable. We see the same thing happen every year where he looks like MVP candidate, then he goes down. So I can't put him in my top 5. Excuse me, when I see these other guys on the board, knowing we're probably not going to get 17 games out of him. So, I mean, with that being said, we're looking at my top 5, and I'm going to get a drink of water for this, man. This is going to be interesting. So I'll tell you the truth right now. I've had notes for all these guys so far, at least just a little bit. This top 5 could go any way, and I'm thinking about changing it up on the fly, but I'm going to stick with my guns a little bit. We're going to take Super Bowl competitor, Super Bowl loser, but amazing quarterback Jalen Hurts. I mean, I really don't have anything bad to say about him. He came out super slow. He was an older guy, transferred to Oklahoma, and he was not looking good in his first year in the NFL. Some of my favorite, analysts and NFL fans that I trust dearly said he was done. He had no chance. But he proved everyone wrong last year, including myself, including any analyst that had something bad to say about him. That Philadelphia team was electric. I mean, electric. You don't get favored to win the Super Bowl with a bad quarterback. And Jalen Hurts proves that. He goes out and he is prime Jalen Hurts. I mean, he is early Alabama Jalen Hurts, and he is lighting defenses up. As I usually say with these younger quarterbacks, and what seems to be the case almost always, mobile arm strength. He can get out the pocket, he can sling the rock, and sometimes it seems like he can just close his eyes and hope AJ Brown's down there somewhere, and it works more times than it doesn't. So Jalen Hurts, I think he's gonna maybe not repeat his success from last year, where last year he might have been the second best QB in the league, but it would be too disrespectful for me not to put him top 5. Then I'm going to go Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is weird. I feel like every year I project him to take that leap and be in the top 5, but we haven't seen it happen yet. I'm going to go against my better judgment and predict it again. I think Justin Herbert just has the skills in magnitudes. He has too much skill to not be top 5 next year. They bring him Quentin Johnston. I mean, it must be Justin Herbert who loves these tall receivers because he can't get away from them. And he's going to have, Keenan, Mike, and Quentin next year. And he's going to have the biggest targets out of anybody in the whole league. This Chargers team, it feels too good to fail. They will because they do it every year. But he brings back Eckler. He's not out yet. Who knows? I know Eckler is requesting a trade, but Justin Herbert is too good. I trust him in the pocket. I trust his arm strength. I like his accuracy more than a lot of people on this board. And it's about time, right? I can't be the only one that's thinking it's about time for Justin Herbert to prove himself. And I got to say, I think this is going to be the year. Another guy is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow already proved himself. I know he struggles with the injuries a little bit, but he is cool. He's calm. He's collected. That Bengals team almost made the Super Bowl again last year. And it's because of Joe Burrow. I mean, this Bengals team was absolute dumpster fire. People were talking about moving the Bengals when they got the number 1 pick. Joe Burrow comes in, it's a completely new team. We see guys getting drafted on the phone, so happy that they got drafted to Cincinnati. If you told me that 5 years ago, I would think you're joking with me. And it's because of this guy, Joe Burrow. Guys want to play with him. Guys know he's the next big thing. And he's proven it. He's proven it so much where I can't keep him out of my top 3. It's a prediction for next year, but Joe Burrow is young. Excuse me, coming off amazing seasons. It would be ridiculous for me to think he's going to take a step back when he's continued to take steps forward, it feels like, every single year. So I'm a big fan of his. I think he's going to show out this year. Now we get to talk about the guy I really want to talk about, because this is going to be ridiculously high for some people. People don't understand that, once again, prediction for next year, Trevor Lawrence is probably the best QB prospect I've ever seen in my entire life. Genuinely. He is tall, he is confident, and his arm is top 5. I don't know how you keep him out of the top 5. The Jaguars are ready to make a push next year. I mean, just a couple years back, they were fighting in the AFC Championship game with the Patriots. That's a Super Bowl on the line. And it feels like they fell off a cliff and have climbed their way back to the top since then. I mean, this Jags team is good. This is a team that's going to make some noise in the AFC South. And it's because of Trevor Lawrence. A shout out to Trayvon Walker and some of these other high picks they've got that have contributed. But Trevor Lawrence is that guy. And I'm confident going on a limb and saying he's going to be the second best quarterback in the league this year. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. I know you might not like to hear it. Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, will be the second best quarterback in the NFL this year. Quote me on it. That being said, I have no hot takes for number one. It's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, whether he's the fantasy MVP or the, NFL MVP or all that nonsense, it doesn't matter, because no matter what, he will be the best quarterback in the NFL. He just is insanely consistent for the way he plays football. He plays football like there's a laser beam on his back and he's going to get shot. He is moving. He is making decisions. We love to see the plays where he throws it behind his back, goes to the last option when you didn't even see it was there. And he's doing it usually with his guy Tyreek Hill. But last year we saw him do it with nobody. Teams this is a team filled with receivers that you guys might not have heard of. And it's a Super Bowl championship team because Patrick Mahomes is that good. He's playing with a 7th round running back. And, of course we have to mention Travis Kelce. He has a connection with his tight ends that we haven't seen since Brady and Gronk. It is absolutely insane. So with that being said, I can't keep him out. He has to be number one. And that's going to wrap it up, guys. I understand if this video may have made you angry. This is my order. Mahomes in first, Trask in last. And these are my tiers as well. I named the tiers. These are all me, and these are all my genuine opinions. Once again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. If you do agree, shout me out a little bit. And one question to wrap up the video: who is your team's quarterback, and where would you put them on this tier list? How do you think that, these new additions are going to do? Especially if you're a fan with one of these rookie quarterbacks or Aaron Rodgers, anyone like that. I mean, there's so many options. I'm not going to ramble on much longer. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave any of your comments. Also check out the Instagram, Next Man Up Podcast. Check out the TikTok, and check out any of the rest of our videos. Me and Banning are doing tier lists all the time. So I hope this finds you well, and peace out. Thank you, guys.